Hello, everyone.
Is this all of us?
Not yet, but I figured I would say hello to the people that are here.
Okay, I'll be right back.
Okay.
Hi there.
Hello.
Hi.
Okay, we're going to start in 3 minutes or 4. I'll give everybody, it's 1:58 here is what I have. So given that we're Jews, I'm going to give everybody a few minutes after. I hate to, but everybody tells me that's the nice way of being. You know me, I'm nothing but nice. Hey, how do you like my shoes?
Whoa. Wow.
Facebook has targeted me with shoes. So I'm like a sucker. Okay. Nicole, are you here? No. Nicole's on because she's, what is she doing? What are you doing? Why did you do that? I have no idea what she's doing. She took over my computer. Nicole. Hello. I can't take the call right now. Okay, is it?
I'm just joining. I'm saying hi. Are you good, Rabbi? Is everything set up?
No, I'm seeing your screen.
Oh.
I think all of us are.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay. You got me going there, girl. Thank you, Nicole.
You're welcome. I thought you would see the thing, but you all have it, right?
Right, and I've got it too.
Okay, no problem. Okay, so have a good, I'm recording it, and I'll send it out to everyone, put it on the website after.
Great, thank you.
Okay, bye.
Okay, so I'm checking in with everybody. How's everybody doing? Okay. I'm gonna unmute, I think. No, you have to unmute yourselves. Okay.
Yes.
All right, so what I wanted to do is I have a check-in here, as it says on the agenda. One word for where you're at in this process. We'll start with Anna.
Searching.
Ryan.
Motivated.
Okay. Rob.
Here.
All right. Rhonda.
Learning.
Beth.
Hopeful.
Guidon.
Unfolding.
Okay, great. So we sent out the, we put up the Chuba sheets. I'm going to go over those individually with you. I'm not sure that we're all ready to share them all in a group. But this webinar is compatible with the last one and with the Chuba sheets because, well, let's go. because it's still a spiritual practice, and it asks some big questions. So everybody's got it in front of them. All right, so Rabbi Chia Bar Abba was ill. Rabbi Yochanan went in to visit him and asked, "Are these afflictions dear to you?" Rabbi Chia Bar Abba answered, "Neither they nor their reward." Rabbi Yochanan said to him, "Give me your hand." Rabbi Chia Bar Abba gave Rabbi Yochanan his hand, and Rabbi Yochanan revived him. What? Anything strike you right there?
The idea of there being reward for suffering.
Okay. All right. For an affliction. Suffering, right. Okay, anything else?
That Rabbi Yochanan had the ability to revive him.
Okay. For me, the second sentence, "Are these afflictions dear to you?" is the first thing that jumps.
I don't
He
even know
goes
why he
to-
would ask that.
What?
I don't even know why he would ask that. If somebody's ill, why would you ask if they're dear to him?
Well, it's not necessarily a physical illness as much as it seems to be a spiritual illness. And how many people do you know that like to be miserable?
A lot.
I don't know if I would say like to be miserable or are used to it, are just sort of in that
Okay.
mindset.
Okay. Okay. I don't have a, you know what I mean? It's not a, either way you put it. But there are people who are actually afraid because they've lived in it for so long, as Rhonda said, that who am I without it? And that's why freedom is so difficult for so many people. We live in the land of the free, home of the brave, and there's people who want to be told what to do. And that's why totalitarianism is so, people are so receptive to somebody saying, "I have the answer, follow me, you don't have to think." That's a form of I don't want to be responsible. I don't want to experience it all.
That's just sometimes when I'm telling someone a problem that I'm having, if they ask me, "Okay, what's your problem?" They might have picked up on something that's totally insignificant for me. And I had my grandmother died, my dog died, I got a paper cut. You might think that it's my grandmother dying that's a serious problem, but for me, I'm worried about my paper cut, right? Or I'm managing all these things at home and at work and blah blah blah, and just asking someone to articulate what they're experiencing as significant can open a different conversation.
Right. Very good. So then,
I also, I mean, Rabbi Yochanan is fascinating to get into who he is as it unfolds over this narrative. But even from this first step is, who is he? What are his qualities that he is able to articulate the hard truth and have it be heard? And I'm thinking about people who do, in whatever broad way, love suffering, or who are kind of always right in a difficult spot, whatever, and friends or loved ones, and you can't really, who is the person who can you can't just say to them, really the issue is you love suffering. You could, but they're not going to hear it. And not only that Rabbi Yochanan is able to say that, but it seems as if it lands in a way that Rabbi Chia can actually hear it.
absolutely. So part of this is having the gravitas here, right? It's also the connection. Most of all, it's the connection. Because to say to somebody, Are these afflictions dear to you? You really have to be saying to somebody, I see you in this angst. And I've noticed you in this angst for a while. I paid attention to you. And really, in our work, what do people want? They all want us to pay attention to them. So then it goes on. Rabbi Yochanan was ill. Rabbi Hanina went in to visit him and asked, are these afflictions dear to you? Rabbi Yochanan answered him, neither they nor their report. Rabbi Hanina said to him, give me your hand. Rabbi Yochanan gave him his hand, and Rabbi Hanina was revived. Now, what was left out of this is what the Gemara says, which I want to add in. Somehow it was cut off. I don't know how. I apologize. Why did Rabbi Yochanan need Rabbi Hanina's help? The Gemara says, let Rabbi Yochanan revive himself. They said, a captive cannot release himself from prison. So you see, Gidon, this is an interesting flip on what you said. Even Rabbi Yochanan is susceptible to it.
Well, that's the constant. I mean, I feel that as new clergy, these moments where there are things going on in my own family, and I'm thinking, well, I can help these other people. Why can't I be that rabbi for? Because you can't be your family's rabbi.
That's for sure.
Or yourself.
Actually, I can be my family's rabbi because my brother's a rabbi, so I'm his rabbi.
But also for ourselves, I guess.
And he's mine. I mean, we work it out really well. Now, he can't be the rabbi for his family. Right. So, but it's really important to see that every one of us falls into this malaise, if you will. The spiritual, emotional depression, blip, happens to everybody. I mean, Rabbi Yochanan was Rabbi Yochanan. So it also shows the imperfections. All of our heroes have clay feet. That's what I love about our tradition. None of our heroes are perfect. Is that making sense to everybody?
I'm thinking about, so then what was it about Yochanan that he was willing to extend his hand? But if the Gemara asks, why did Yochanan need the service at all? And the answer is, well, the captive, right? Meaning Yochanan can't get out of the forest by himself, that kind of stuff. So what does it say about Yochanan, and what can we learn there in knowing when to extend our hand and admit our frailty?
Okay, so that's a good piece. That's a really good question. Anybody have any thoughts on it?
Can you repeat?
What is it about Yochanan that he could both extend his hand to help somebody and extend his hand to be helped? Am I right, Ryan?
Yeah, so if the assumption is that the captive can't release himself from prison, he's not able to bring himself out of the woods, or whatever metaphor you want to create there. What does it say about Yochanan, and what strategies, tools does he employ in that brief sentence where he actually does extend his hand, knowing that he knows the drill, he knows the trick, he knows what the therapist is going to say next. So what does it require? Is it bravery? Is it courage? Is it vulnerability? And unpacking what was going on internally for Yochanan, that he took the step to extend his hand and admit that he needed someone.
Great question.
Therapist. When you're a therapist, you still need to be in therapy.
Okay.
because you take on everybody, when you're a therapist or even a spiritual leader, you take on everybody else's ailments because you're trying to help them. You internalize them, and if you don't let them go in another arena, then they're going to kind of eat you alive.
I know the reason. I'm thinking through like, what does it actually take then, right? How many therapists don't have therapists, right? Or how many clergy people don't actually have therapists and don't do any spiritual work themselves? I think it says something about Yochanan. I'm wondering how I can maybe do that. Like, what do I need to learn from Yochanan in that moment?
I think it's just about feeling someone's pain and reaching out. Whether you're offering them community or a hug or just an understanding voice. I just think it's the idea of giving someone the feeling that they're not alone, that you're there for them.
Okay.
I think that I see part of the answer, Ryan, in the imagery of the prison, where what keeps us from reaching out is a sense of limitation, or of feeling of our own ineptitude, is too strong a word, but if we are able to see that, I mean, a prisoner, you don't say to the prisoner, why don't you just walk out, right? The prisoner knows there are all sorts of structures and systems keeping them in place. They don't feel like, what's wrong with me that I'm in this prison? Right? They know that they're imprisoned, but all too often, I think the power of being the spiritual helper to others can deceive us into feeling, or mislead us into feeling, well, and then therefore I should have that power over my own self.
Right, and you have to remember the relationship too. Hanina was a student and a contemporary of Rabbi Yochanan's.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to share, was that this is not just two people who know each other. Rabbi Yochanan's the teacher, Rabbi Chia is the student, and it's mutual both ways. They can heal one another, but they can't heal themselves.
Right. So I think that it's also this sense of, when Rabbi Hanina came to see him, Rabbi Yochanan remembered, oh shit, I can't do this myself. He might not have even realized he was in that suffering, in that affliction. And I think that that's a piece of it. Who are the people around you that you allow in like that? And how do we make ourselves available for other people to be Hanina and or Yochanan for them? Because I think that that's a big piece of this. And Chia trusted him. So really, when you think about it, with the people that are closest to you, what's the phrase you need to give them? Or what's the agreed upon code that you have for when you're sort of getting locked up in whatever ways we get locked up? So me, I start to get crazy and, I want to be mad. I want to yell, scream. Harriet says to me, how long are you going to be like this? And I say, I don't know. She said, well, you have 3 minutes. Now go in the other room. And that's the signal. And when she's feeling really, really distant, I say, Harriet, come out, wherever you are. Because she's lost her, because the affliction, the suffering has taken over, the fears, etc. So with the people you're close to, one person at least, what's the code that allows them to be Yochanan or Hanina for you, and vice versa. Is that making sense?
Yeah.
You all right, Anna? Okay. Okay, so then Rabbi Elazar was ill, so Rabbi Yochanan went to visit him and saw he was lying in a dark room. Rabbi Yochanan exposed his arm and light fell into the room. Pretty cool. He saw that Rabbi Elazar was crying, asked him, "Why are you crying? Is it because you did not accumulate as much Torah knowledge as you wanted? One who brings a substantial sacrifice, one who brings a meager sacrifice have equal merit as long as he directs his heart toward heaven." So, don't feel less than. Then he says, and if you're crying because of a lack of food, your dire financial strait, not every person merits 2 tables, 1 of wealth. And if you're crying because of your children who died, this is the bone of the 10th son that I lost. So I understand all these. Rabbi Elazar said to Rabbi Yochanan, it's account of this beauty, i.e., the beauty of Rabbi Yochanan will rot in the earth that I am crying. Rabbi Yochanan, being the egoless person that he is, says, yeah, well, for this you should certainly cry. And they both cried. In the meantime, Rabbi Yochanan asked him, are these afflictions dear to you? Rabbi Elazar said, neither they nor their reward. Give me your hand. Rabbi Elazar gave him his hand, and Rabbi Yochanan revived him. So I think from this you can see that it's about suffering the afflictions. And what's Elazar worried about? He's worried about beauty. But I would say that maybe it's different. It's not just the physical beauty of Yochanan. It's the beauty of his Torah. They had no idea that all this was being written down and that this would be codified. Okay, they didn't know that there was going to be a printing press and that people for 2,000 years would study them. So how do you do things? How do you get past your afflictions knowing that it might all end with you? Think of how much time we spend in what will be after. Whether it's after our, the hereafter, or just after I'm out of this position, or I'm out of this, or you know what I mean? I mean, those are very real questions for me, so that's part of why I'm bringing those up. But the hereafter I never worry about, because Rabbi Heschel said, what God does with me when I'm dead is God's business. What I do with me while I'm alive is mine. But think about it. Why would Elazar? Because, I mean, listen, they're both great scholars. So why are they crying? Are they crying over physical beauty? Or are they crying over losing the beauty of Yochanan's Torah?
I mean, it could be either Yochanan is the one who Reish Lakish said his beauty was wasted on women. So he is, when you said he's crying over beauty, it occurred to me, but still it's this that kind of existential crisis of realizing, coming to whatever point it is in your life, to see how I am now, the strength I have, the beauty I have, the whatever I have. It is to really feeling the not just intellectually knowing it's temporary, but to really having something that shakes your life to experience that, that sorrow, the recognition of how finite it all is. I mean, that's hard to come out of.
Okay.
Or deeply. I mean, that's sort of until we make peace with death, I guess. That's, in some ways, I hear him saying, what am I crying over? My own death. I mean, he's putting it on Yochanan, but it's about, I'm crying over how temporary everything is, all the signposts, you know. Who's the most beautiful in the Beit Midrash in my universe? Rabbi Yochanan. Well, that's gonna not be, and if at some point there'll be someone else who comes along, and my life will be turned upside down when that signpost is no longer there.
Okay, good. Anna.
Good. I'm still pondering.
Anybody else? Because this is a good point. Also, remember, Yochanan was the last of the inhabitants of Jerusalem. The last of the Jerusalem rabbis. Yes, Rhonda.
Just agreeing that it's terrifying. Mortality, the existential crisis. It is real and it is terrifying.
Yes, and look what they're saying here. Don't be so terrified. It's the rewards from that terror dear to you. We spend so much time in worrying about stuff. Actually, all we can do is the best we can do. And so many of us don't believe that. So many people that we run into, in fact, that's why they get mad at us, because we're doing the best we can and we know it and it's good enough, and they can't accept the best they can do, nor can they accept the best we can do, because they have this is how it should be. This is what the best is. Like the best is a stationary thing. That's a way of being in this affliction. It's a real part of this suffering. I can't control what's going to happen after I'm gone. All I can do is be in this moment. And if I'm worried about that, then I'm not present. If I'm not present, then what am I really bringing? What Yochanan is the Rosh Yeshiva had to stay present. That's why it was so important for him to be revived, allow himself to be revived. He shows his humanness in crying over, yeah, you know, I'm going to die, and I don't know what's going to happen to the beauty of my Torah or the light that I bring. Because remember, it says he showed his arm and the room lit up. That kind of spiritual power. What are you thinking, Beth?
I'm thinking about whether one can authentically experience anticipatory grief and be fully in the moment at the same time. Because anticipatory grief is partly projecting into the future, but if that's what you're authentically experiencing in the moment, then it is what's real in the moment. So that's what I was pondering.
Right, but the question for me becomes, what's the reward from doing that? Because you see, I have to plan for tomorrow. My father, Oliver Shalom, used to say, plan for tomorrow, but live for today. Live in today. So if I'm in that, how did you call it? What kind of grief?
Anticipatory?
Anticipatory, thank you. If I'm in that anticipatory stage, then I can't be present here. While it's authentic, it's not really, it doesn't help me be present. And that is an affliction. Even though it's an authentic experience, it's still an affliction.
Mhm.
Which I think, you know, as you said that, what just triggered for me is that we can be authentic in that kind of a way, an authentic, you know, however you want to put it. That doesn't mean that it serves us. And you're right, it's anticipatory.
Seems that Yochanan is okay with the other's grief, right? It's, are you know, are these afflictions dear to you? No? All right, we named it. Give me your hand. I wonder in the, you know, I'm still worried about such and such. Wow, it felt so good just to get that off my chest. Okay,
Right.
I'm here with you.
Right.
It felt like sort of a spark went off when you said that, Beth.
Right. I think that that's true too. People need to at least be able to express it so that they can come back. So I agree with you, Beth. It's authentic. It's just that when we stay in it, that's what causes us problems. Have you ever met somebody who's so worried about what's going to happen that they don't realize what is happening and how what they're doing causes what they're afraid is going to happen? If you haven't,
We all do that. That's, you know, that's what procrastination is all about.
Right. Right.
I also think, Ryan, I was also looking at what you were pointing to, this cycling through what we see from Yochanan, just noticing that the diagnostician, you know, that he is patient and listening and makes suggestions. He's not, you know, when they aren't taken up, it's not, well, why not? Or I'm a putz. How could I possibly thought it was that? He's trying to, I mean, maybe we might not all agree with putting words in his mouth, but I see that more kind of metaphorically. He's sort of, he's exploring, he's with Eleazar, exploring what's happening, what might be going on. And then I also, right, I think, and until you find that, until you name what it is, the healing can't happen.
And the conversation doesn't change, right? As chaotic as you want to present, as, you know, whatever you want to lay on me. Okay, I heard you. I'm sitting with you. Give me your hand.
Right.
You know,
Right. I think that's a very, that's really good and that's really important. And so it becomes now, Yochanan is giving him all these reasons so that he can speak, making anything that's going on for him okay. He starts with, don't feel bad about how much Torah you do or you don't know. You're not inferior. Then he goes to sustenance. It's okay if you're not the richest guy in the academy. Think of how much of our lives and how much of the people we meet, their lives are based on needing to not be smarter than everybody else, richer than everybody else, right? He even goes to the most personal loss of a child, which is a reason to be in grief. He says, even that, we can't stay in that grief and allow it to overcome us. really he's telling us not a place in our life are we allowed to wallow in. Visit, experience, but can't get dragged down in it.
So can you translate this into a modern day conversation that you would have with a client at Beit Tshuva?
Sure. When I see somebody in distress, when I see somebody, period, I ask them questions like, what's going on? What's happening? And they'll give me some bullshit. I say, no. Are you worried about what happens after you leave here? Are you worried about a job? Are you worried about what's going on at home? Are you worried about, what is this thing that's keeping you locked up? What's the story you're telling yourself? What's the lie you're holding on to? What's the old story that you're reliving and reliving and reliving? I can't tell you how much this thing that I've been doing about leaving the old story in the past has impacted people. Because it's saying that the traumas of my childhood, and nobody gets out of childhood without trauma. Nobody. If you're a teenager and you're in any kind of schooling, okay, with popular kids, they're not popular kids, did this one, did that one, they're dating, right? It's traumatic. I mean, it just is. So, am I going to keep reliving those traumas? Or realize I'm not a 16-year-old kid anymore, 15, 14, whatever. So that's been a big piece of this, Rhonda, and I think that that's part of what he's saying too here with these examples he gives. Don't live in that story. Because whoever gives, whatever your offering is, it's all good. Not everybody merits not everybody's going to have a bunch of wealth. And it's interesting, 2 tables, because he's saying you have the table of scholarship of Torah, even though you don't have the table of wealth. Even loss. It's a terrible tragedy. I've lost my 10th child. And I have to move forward. I can't stay in that grief. Yes, Rob.
But I think that's where Rabbi Elazar then is helping him out. I don't think Rabbi Yochanan is doing it the way it needed to be done. He is guessing, oh, maybe it's this, maybe it's that. Let me tell you about all these old stories. He's not taking the time to actually find out what the story is. So eventually Rabbi Elazar is willing to meet him halfway and say, no, stop guessing. Stop projecting what you think is my trouble. Let me tell you what my problem is. And when he stops trying to guess what the trouble is, but takes the time to hear instead, oh yeah, that is worth mourning. And then they mourn.
Right.
Once they mourn, they go on, right? And so one of the things I love about this passage is Rabbi Yochanan catches that what he's trying to do of just guessing using his all-knowing Rabbi Yochanan powers just isn't it. And that he really just needed to sit down and listen deeply what was being said and then respond to that, not by saying that's wrong, it's an old story, let's move on, but mourning. And then they could move on together. And that, for me, was really powerful.
Okay. And it could be that he did his prompting got Elazar to speak. Could be that he didn't give him a chance, and it could be he gave him a chance and Elazar couldn't do anything. Because remember, when somebody's in that much grief, when the afflictions are still dear to them, they stay in it. Both are true. I'm not saying, it's not
Yeah,
one.
right. But it could go either way. I'm just that's one of the things I like about this text, right? Is
Yeah.
when I have engaged with this text with people, is I sometimes am ready to, well, is it this? Is it that? I know the 10 most likely lists. Let me keep guessing for you. No. Like, wait, why am I talking? Just listen to what the person is. And instead of going to, oh, that's an old story, let's leave it behind. Like, oh, yeah, that's really terrible. Let's mourn this. And then I'm ready for the next pieces, like to give it the opportunity to mourn whatever it is that is the loss, without diminishing that loss, even if it's not a loss that I necessarily would recognize as a loss, but to take that minute, okay, I can mourn with you. And now let's move on. That the moving on without the mourning isn't always as helpful.
Right. And there's another piece here that is really, it's tricky, all of it's nuanced. Some people have been mourning so long that they've turned their mourning into suffering. So my mother mourned my father for 53 years. It became a badge that she wore. She wrapped herself in it. Every time something good happened, oh, if only your father was here. It's like, he's not, Mom. So she never allowed herself to enjoy as much of her life as she could have, because she was wrapped in that suffering, the mourning that turned to suffering. It's also a piece of this too. And that's what some people do.
I'm curious how you read Rabbi Yochanan. Because one way to read what ultimately happens, and it goes along the lines of what you said about spiritual counseling, as something that's less, where the boundaries are aren't as firm, maybe, or as there's maybe more permeable. Because one way to read his weeping is when we are there are certain kinds of grief, loss, that require us to be in it with someone else, or especially this around, what he's mourning is really the finite nature of life. It's a fear of death. Dealing with someone else with him, even though in the ultimate moment that won't be the case, that can feel comforting. Is that how do you read that? And also, I guess, addressing that sometimes maybe we need to be in the shit with someone, not just at a remove, but because he cries with him.
I don't think we should ever be removed. I mean, my deal is that we're in this together. I'm not the doctor and you're not the patient. We're two humans, and I'm a little bit further along this path because I've been doing it for so long. And I can't be removed for you because I'm an advocate for your soul. So how can I be removed? I got to be in with you always. And I think you're right. I think that's what Yochanan shows. I'm in it with you. That's what Hanina shows. That's what he accepts, is that Yochanan is in it with him. He sees it. Hanina sees it. And there's this sense that, okay, I can see your suffering, whatever it is. And I'm here with you. Give me your hand. You are not alone. I'm right here with you. I'm not leaving you in the dust. I'm not pulling you up. I'm not pushing you down. I'm right with you. Think of those moments where you felt somebody right with you. and how uplifting it was. Or it is, hopefully. So there's a few questions that we put here, but I think that the main question I would like you to think about, you can write me, we can talk about it, whatever. What afflictions are still dear to you?
Say that again.
What afflictions are still dear to you? All right. Any other questions, thoughts? Going once? Going twice.
Question.
Yes.
So you want us to respond to that in writing, or you want us to think about it for our next spiritual counseling session?
Whatever you would prefer. I'm going to leave it up to you guys.
So you're leaving your next question. Can you help someone who doesn't want to be helped?
Yeah, I'm going to leave that. We'll get into more of that later. But I think that right now I want to focus on you guys.
Okay.
I think I thought a lot about that second question a lot in these last couple days. Yesterday was Free Narcan Day in New Jersey, where they would give out Narcan to people. And I listened to a talk radio show, and they just talked back and forth, whether it was a good idea to give out Narcan, was it a bad idea to give out Narcan, and so on and so forth. So, you know, that kind of leads to that next question, you know, can you help someone who doesn't want to be helped? Are we enabling, or are we not enabling? And
well, you're saving a life. Narcan is I think, absolutely should be with everybody because you could save a life. For me, that's like a no-brainer. That's like, not everybody was getting polio, but we did
vaccines.
What was it? Save It on Sunday, SOS, back in the 50s. None of you are probably old enough to remember. So, but we went down to local school and everybody did it. So that's not enabling, that's saving a life. There's a difference. All right. Thank you, everybody. Have a great Shabbos.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.